Before I begin, I want to say that I do not assume that we all think the same politically. In fact, I know we don't, because some of y'all drove me crazy in the primary. Unitarian Universalism is a mix of far left and centrist and Democrat and Republican and socially liberal and fiscally conservative, and we all can find a home here in Unitarian Universalism. But it's also true that due to some of the strongly held beliefs and principles that we hold mutually, I think most of us are feeling a little fearful about what a Trump-Pence presidency might bring because of what has been said about women, about Mexicans, about Muslims, about people of color and people with disabilities and LGBT folks. So I am assuming that we all have a little fear, and I hold that fear. And I am speaking from that place today. So I welcome you to join me today, not in thinking exactly how I think. There are some people who've already spoken that have shared their perspectives, and maybe those will touch you more deeply than mine. I'm just going to offer where I am today, and I welcome you into the journey with me, into that wrestling with me, not to feel the same as me, okay? A month ago, I picked the topic of right relationship to preach about today. 6 of us from the Unitarian Universalist Meeting House went to a training on right relationship recently, and I have been excited to talk with you all about it. Right relationship is a term used by 18th century Quaker leader John Woolman. It means that in one's interactions with another, there is fairness, justice, equity, and compassion. It means that when mistakes are made or feelings are hurt, as they inevitably will be in community, people are open to the possibility to forgive and be forgiven. It means that conflict is addressed directly, and there is mutual respect, even when there is difference of opinion. Knowing that this election was coming up, I thought we would need to hear a sermon about right relationship. Now, I've told you before that I only preach sermons that I myself need to hear. And I'm going to be honest, even on Tuesday, I knew that I needed a sermon on right relationship, even Tuesday morning. I knew this because on Tuesday I had to drive to Orleans twice, which meant that I had to pass the polling station in Eastham 4 times throughout the day. And I knew that I needed a sermon on right relationship on that 4th time passing those Trump signs, when the traffic light just happened to turn red just as I slowed down to stop next to those Trump supporters. And I knew I needed a sermon on right relationship as I rolled down my window and shouted at them, "You must not have daughters." Your minister is so human. Of course, Tuesday, as I began to write this sermon, I was mostly thinking that my message would need to be about not being too smug after a big win. I was certain that most of us would be crowing about our first female president. I wanted us to be sure to keep in mind that in order to create real change, President Clinton was going to have to reach across that party aisle and actually hear the concerns of those on the other side. And I was going to have to get back into right relationship with those people I yelled at out the car window. And so as I began to write my sermon on Tuesday, I planned to tell you about 3 people: an undocumented immigrant who could not vote, a gay woman with an adopted daughter who voted for Hillary Clinton, and a struggling farmer from the Midwest who voted for Donald Trump. I was going to ask you to put yourselves in each of their shoes for a minute. In the first person's shoes, the undocumented immigrant, I imagined I would be thinking, I fear for the stability of my family. I wish I could vote so that my family will be secure and have a good future. In the second person's shoes, the gay woman with the adopted child, I imagined I would be thinking, I fear for the stability of my family. I voted so that my family will be secure and have a good future. In the third person's shoes, the struggling farmer from the Midwest, I imagined I would be thinking, I fear for the stability of my family. I voted so that my family will be secure and have a good future. And so on Tuesday, I began to write about listening to each other's stories as a way to gain understanding, even with those who have a different story than ourselves. And I was writing about not being smug. And then Wednesday, I woke up and realized that not being smug was not going to be the challenge. Being stunned was more my challenge. Being heartbroken was more my challenge. I had been wrong about the direction our country was taking. Really wrong. And like many of you, I woke up surprised and dismayed about how wrong I was. But I was still thinking about right relationship. And I was still thinking about those 3 stories. And how if we learned each other's stories, maybe we wouldn't be so afraid of each other. Maybe right relationship meant figuring out what 50% of the country was thinking about when they voted differently than I did.
Not quite 50.
Good point. On Wednesday, I still saw a place in my sermon for those 3 people. I felt deep empathy for all of them. They were all just trying to protect their families. They all had a dream of a good life, and they were all hoping that a new president would help their family to feel secure. I imagined that farmer in the Midwest whose family had passed that farm down for generations and who now had next to nothing to pass down to his own sons and daughter. That farmer who goes into town, I pictured it being St. Cloud, Minnesota. And the town doesn't look anything like it did when he was a kid. And the people don't look anything like they did when he was a kid. And it is full of refugees. And this farmer, he doesn't understand what the process was to bring them here or who is paying for them to be here. He just knows that his own family is struggling and that no one seems to be helping him out. I could tap into deep empathy for this man. And that's the day I picked our hymns, When I Am Frightened and Building Bridges. Building bridges between our divisions. If I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we can make such a sweet harmony. I was really getting somewhere with that sermon. And then it was Wednesday afternoon, and a friend's cousin, who is black, boarded a city bus and was taunted with the question, "Shouldn't you sit at the back of the bus today?" And then it was Wednesday night, and at Wellesley College, a large black truck with Trump flags went speeding through the campus, harassing students and driving at them fast and yelling, "This is what you get now." And the truck drove to the house on campus that is for the black students, their safe space, to intimidate and threaten them. And they sought out Muslim students and taunted and threatened them before campus police were finally able to remove them. And then it was Thursday, and Thursday morning I was getting messages from my friends who are teachers saying that their children were coming to school crying because they were afraid that they were going to be thrown out of our country. And then it was Thursday afternoon, and my Hope, a cancer researcher and physician in Washington, D.C., went out for a jog along the path near where she lives, and as she passed a group of 3 men eating their lunches, one of them yelled out, "Who owns your you-know-what now?" And then it was Thursday, and a man came up to a woman who was shopping at Walmart, pulled off her hijab, and told her it wasn't allowed in this country anymore. And then it was Thursday, and a young couple in North Carolina with an equality sticker on the back of their car found a note on their windshield that read, "Can't wait until your marriage is overturned by a real president. Gay families burn in hell. Trump, 2016. And then it was Friday, and my sister was doing laundry at a laundromat in Quincy, and she texted me, "There is a woman here, and she is sobbing, and it is heartbreaking. She is Muslim." And I thought about right relationship. Right relationship challenges us to ask the question, what is the most loving thing I can do right now? Well, the most loving thing I can do right now is to speak up, stand up, rise up and say, this is not okay. This election has unleashed and emboldened hatred and racism and xenophobia and sexism and ableism, and that's all decidedly not right relationship. You know, I will preach the Building Bridges sermon one day, and we will sing that hymn one day. It is a good one. And I will figure out how to sit down with Trump voters and see what they were hoping for when they wanted to make America great again. And I will find a way to see that though we have different ideas, our fears for our families are both fear, and our hopes for our families are both hope, and we will connect on these things. I know I will find a way to do this because these Trump voters are not just the farmer in the Midwest or those strangers I yelled at in Eastham. They are in my family, and I love them. And I will build bridges across the holiday table. But I'm not there today. I'm too mad, and I'm too sad. And my priority today is to stand up to those hateful acts that have been happening since Wednesday. Today, the story that motivates me, that gets to me, is the story of my colleague with 2 young sons who woke up the morning after the election and asked who had won. And she told them that Trump had won. And the first little boy said, "But Mommy, he's going to build a wall." And the second little boy said, "Well, we'll just knock it down again." Today, the story that I find hope in is a story of standing up to bullies, of owning our own bodies, of sitting down next to the Muslim woman at the laundromat, of the note on the gay family's door that said, "You might be feeling scared after this election. Please know that we support your family. Love your neighbor." Today, the story that motivates me is the movement of people wearing safety pins on their lapels as a symbol to others that they are a safe person, a safe space, that they will stand up for the safety of others. And there's a statement that's being circulated along with the safety pins, and it reads, "If you wear a hijab, I'll sit with you on the train. If you're trans, I'll go to the bathroom with you. If you're a person of color, I'll stand with you if the cops stop you. If you're a person with disabilities, I'll hand you my megaphone. If you're LGBTQ, I won't let anybody tell you you're broken. If you're a woman, I'll fight by your side for all your rights. If you're an immigrant, I'll help you find resources. If you're a survivor, I'll believe you. If you're a Native American, I'll stand with you to protect our water, your burial grounds, and your people. If you're a refugee, I'll make sure you're welcome. If you need me, I'll be with you." That is what is motivating me right now. My mama bear rage. This morning, I have a basket full of safety pins. I have enough for all of you, but I want you to think about what it means to wear one before you decide to take one. Are you willing to walk someone home? Are you willing to sit with someone? Are you willing to go out of your way to make someone feel welcome? Are you willing to use your privilege to point out injustice? Are you willing to do more than pin something to your jacket because this in and of itself is not enough? Are you willing to question your own assumptions? Are you willing to challenge your own prejudices? Are you willing to value someone else's sense of belonging as much as your own? If you're willing to do that, I invite you to come forward for your safety pin. And you know how we do this. We go up this aisle, and we go back to our seats from this aisle and this aisle. Let's begin. There is no power greater than a community discovering what it cares about. Thank you for being on this journey with me, for forgiving me for being human, for hanging in there with me as we move through being mad and sad before we get to those next steps of building bridges. We'll get there together. Amen. And blessed be. Please join hands for our closing words. I know my deep commitment, and it is to do everything I can to be a safe space for you. Please go into the world and be that for one another and for everyone you encounter today. Go in peace.